So here is the factory trigger pull. This thing has not even been fired yet. Take it off safe. It is really stiff, really gritty, stagey, and then has actually a relatively clean feeling brake. I put this on my trigger gauge, and it only goes to 8 pounds, and it maxed out the gauge, so I'm guessing it's around 10 pounds. And here's the reset. Again, really gritty, stagey, but pretty positive, tactile, and audible. Now, after about 250 to 300 rounds, the trigger did smooth out quite a bit. Less gritty, less stagey, definitely more smooth. And the brake feels lighter too. I'll get it on the trigger pull gauge in a moment. Here's the reset after 250 to 300 rounds. It's not much better. It's still pretty gritty and a bit stagey on the way out, but still positive, tactile, and audible. So it's actually on the gauge this time. So before it was probably 10 pounds or heavier. Now it's maybe 8.5 or something like that. So the pull weight did go down a little bit after break-in as well. So after a couple 100 round break-in period, I'm starting to see where our wear patterns are. We got some wear right there. So this is really similar to a double hook AK trigger. So this is actually the sear surface right here. This edge, you can see a little bit of wear. That's where I'm going to polish. On the other side, that's where I'm going to polish. The disconnector grabs right here on the back of the hammer. And then these two hooks here and here grab the forward part of that hammer, and the disconnector back here is what grabs the back. So the underside of these hooks here, here, and here are going to get polished. And the disconnector interface and the interface with those two hooks is going to get polished. Now, I'm not a professional gunsmith or anything like that, so pretty much I don't want to remove any material. I just want to, you know, polish it with a fine hone stone. I'm going to go, you know, 2,000 and probably 3,000 grit, something like that. There are the surfaces on the hammer that I just knocked down, smoothed out, shinied up. I used, I think this is a 3,000 grit India stone. I have a few different shapes of these. They work really well. And some light mineral oil honing solution. With a double hook trigger like this, you're going to have to be careful that you don't take one side down more than the other. Otherwise, what's going to happen is all of the spring force on that hammer is going to be resting on one hook, and it's going to really increase your normal force between the two contact points, and actually it'll likely make the trigger heavier than if you just had the two hooks resting on it evenly. So I was actually counting stroke for stroke what material, you know, I was very carefully polishing off on each side here to make sure I brought them down evenly, and then that wasn't such a concern on the disconnector face back here. Again, same thing with the double hook trigger, just the underside of those guys right there is what I did, and I went through and like this did them both at the same time and made sure I kept my stone really parallel to this face of them. And then same thing, bottom side of the disconnector, just shinied that surface up a little bit too. So all these are, you know, they're just cast parts, right? They're cast steel, probably with a nitride finish of some sort on them and stuff like that, and so they're not nicely polished or finished in any way that I can tell necessarily, and that's fine, you know. The gun works great and stuff, but with a little bit of work to it, you can really improve that trigger pull by just smoothing out the mating faces of these parts. The disconnector sits right here on this side, like this, with the spring, and then there's actually a little roller spacer in here to keep it over there when the pin is installed for the trigger, the pivot pin. So on this face of the disconnector where that roller sits, kind of took down the high spots there. I also polished each side of this little roller so that any metal that it's going to be pivoting it against is nice and smooth. Just take more friction out of that equation as well. Okay, so after that polish job, it feels a lot better. It almost has a two-stagey feel to it now, which I actually prefer, so I'm not mad about that. But it's got a really nice, it's a smooth little bit of take up there, and that's that heavy trigger spring. And then creep, but it's smooth. It's smooth creep through to the brake. And the reset is no longer stagey. It's nice and smooth. The reset again. It's nice and smooth, not stagey, not gritty. And the take up and actually through the brake is nice and smooth and not gritty or stagey like it was before. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's still a very heavy trigger. I don't know that the pull weight went down much. We'll go ahead and give it a shot here and see what we get. So broke probably right at, I guess we'll call that right at about 9 pounds, which is exactly what we were at after the break-in period. Try that again, right on the middle of the trigger there. That one was a bit higher. I still think we're yeah, 8.5, 9 pounds probably. But action feels a lot better. It's a lot smoother. HBI spring kit is installed. I've also installed some other goodies in the lower. Pretty happy with how this came out. It feels really nice now. It's a lot lighter. It's still smooth and has a nice clean brake. It still has a smooth reset, positive, you know, audible and tactile reset. Trigger just feels real nice now. For, you know, whatever that spring kit is, 10 bucks, 12 bucks, something like that, and some elbow grease and a little bit of polishing, it turned out really good. So go ahead and put this on the trigger gauge again and see where we're at. One was 6 1/4 pounds. I'll try this again, right in the middle of the trigger there. Maybe 6 pounds 5 ounces. A little bit under 6 pounds, 5 3/4. So, I mean, for the purpose of this gun, I'm pretty happy with that. You know, of course, there's a Timney unit out there, which I may eventually try or something, but this is really pretty nice feeling and still has a decent pull weight for a defensive type of firearm and things like that. And I took this thing to the range, and I could shoot it fast with a 10-pound trigger, so I think I'm really gonna enjoy this. So yeah, for about 10-12 bucks and some elbow grease, get that HBI spring kit for this guy and polish up those you know, sear trigger and disconnector hammer surfaces, all that, and turns out to be a pretty decent trigger. I'm pleased with it.